You wake up with a weight on your chest. Not pain, just pressure, like your soul is holding its breath. You open your eyes, the lights already peeking through the blinds. The world is moving, but you, inside, still feel stuck. You check your phone. Notifications, emails, people asking things of you. You answer, you scroll, you try to keep up. But under every click, every smile you send, there's a silence that never goes away. They tell you it's anxiety. Maybe even depression. Maybe both. But no one ever stops to ask, what if it's not just a mental state? What if it's a soul whispering for something more? I've seen this before. Not just in clinics, not just in books, but in the hollow eyes of men inside barbed wire fences, stripped of everything: family, freedom, even names. And strangely, not all of them broke. Some did, crumbled under the weight of despair, but others, against all odds, found meaning in the darkest places. I remember one man, his hands shaking, lips dry from starvation, but he looked at me and he said, if my wife were alive, she'd want me to live, to resist, for her. That sentence, spoken by someone with nothing, had more strength than any diagnosis I'd ever seen. You may have a job, a family, a house, maybe even followers who like your photos. But none of that silences the ache that comes when you sit alone, just you and your thoughts. That ache has a name, but it's not anxiety. It's emptiness. It's a loss of meaning in a world that glorifies noise and numbs purpose. Okay? And here's what no one tells you. Your anxiety might not be the problem. It might be the signal. Okay? A message hidden in the discomfort. A question your soul is trying to ask. Why am I doing all this if it doesn't mean anything to me? We weren't made to chase dopamine. We were made to create meaning. And when that meaning is missing, the soul doesn't shout, it aches. Quietly, constantly. You feel it when you're surrounded by people, yet feel alone. When you achieve something, but it doesn't make you whole. When you smile, but your eyes, they betray you. So let me ask, do you feel this too? Like there's something deeper you're meant to hear, but the noise won't let you listen. You are not weak. You are not broken. You are not the only one. You're just human. And maybe, just maybe, this isn't the end of your piece. It's the beginning of your search for meaning. You've been told it's chemical, that your brain is misfiring, that you need to breathe, count to 10, maybe take something to calm the storm. And maybe, sometimes, that helps. But have you ever wondered, why is the storm there in the first place? You're not broken. You're being called. But the world has become too loud to hear that call. We live in a time where silence is uncomfortable, even suspicious. Every quiet moment is instantly filled with a scroll, a sound, a screen. We don't allow ourselves to sit in stillness long enough to feel. And because we no longer feel, we no longer know who we are. You think it's anxiety, but maybe, just maybe, it's your soul missing itself. You check your phone before you brush your teeth. You answer messages with a smile while feeling empty inside. You rush through your day, doing things that light you up, then wonder why you feel exhausted. This is not just stress. This is a kind of spiritual malnutrition. Your body is functioning, your mind is active, but your soul, it's starving. We've created a culture obsessed with productivity, performance, and keeping busy. But busy isn't the same as fulfilled. Noise isn't the same as peace. And here's what I've seen. They begin to rot from the inside out, not physically, sexually. We call it anxiety, but the real name is the void, a vacuum of meaning. Slow suffocation that happens not because you're sick, but because you're disconnected. Disconnected from your values, from your purpose, from your inner compass. The modern world gave you everything to fill your time, but nothing to fill your soul. We replace depth with speed, intention with efficiency, purpose with performance. And when the soul senses that its life is being traded for things that mean nothing to it, It cries out, not with words, but with tightness in the chest, with a restlessness you can't explain, the low hum of panic at the edge of your breath. That's not a mental disorder. That's your inner self banging on the walls, asking you to wake up. I saw this in the camps. Men who had lost all freedom, all possessions, even their names. Some wasted away, others survived. Why? Because the ones who survived had something to hold on to. A vision, a reason, a sense that their suffering was part of something bigger than themselves. Today, you might not be in a prison made of barbed wire, but many are living in a prison of their own making. A career they hate, a relationship they endure, a life they never chose but keep living because it's normal. And so, the soul rebels, not with violence, but with symptoms, sleepless nights, chronic tension, a vague sense that nothing is ever quite enough. And what do? We numb it. We scroll, we drink, we overwork, we pretend. But pretending doesn't heal. It just deepens the hole. So let me tell you this. You are not too sensitive, okay? You are not dramatic. You are not just anxious. You are alive, okay? Your soul is asking for something more honest, more true, more real. This isn't a malfunction, it's a message. You don't need to fix yourself. You need to face yourself, because maybe, just maybe, what you've been calling anxiety is actually the memory of who you were meant to be. There was a man I met in the camp. I will never forget his eyes. Not because of how hollow they looked when I first saw him, but because of how deeply they changed by the end. His name was Elias. He was a violinist before the war. He had lost everything. His wife, Anna, had been sent to another camp. His 2 children, both under 10, were taken. He never saw them again. When I first met Elias, he barely spoke, carried himself like a ghost among the living. No emotion, no rage, not even sorrow, just the quiet dullness of someone who had stopped hoping. One day, I sat beside him during a moment of rest. I asked him what he used to do before the war. He didn't answer at first, but after a pause, he whispered, "I used to play for." I thought he meant the audience, but he clarified, "My wife." She would sit near the piano, close her eyes, and listen. She said she could hear my love in every note. His lips trembled, but there were no tears left to give. And then he said something that pierced through me. If she's still alive, I want her to know I didn't give up. That was the first moment I saw life return to his eyes. That was the seed of meaning. The conditions around us did not change. The cold was the same. The hunger was the same. But inside Elias, something shifted. Key began waking up before roll call, not just to survive, but to honor her. He helped other prisoners, even with his own body failing, okay? He offered what little bread he had to those who were worse off. He was still in pain, but the pain now had direction. One night, as we sat near the latrine barracks, he told me, if Anna were here, she would ask me to keep going, not for me, for the memory of what we had, for what we dreamed of. He didn't even know if she was alive. But hope is a strange thing. It doesn't need certainty. It only needs a reason. And that reason gave him a kind of dignity the guards could not steal. I remember the contrast between Elias and another man in the same block. This second man, let's call him Carl, was an engineer before the war, respected, wealthy, educated. He had everything that Elias didn't have anymore, but inside, he was crumbling. Carl often said, "What's the point of any of this?" He looked at the cold and the cruelty and saw no reason to go on. He gave up one morning, simply refused to move. A week later, he was dead. He didn't die from gas or beatings or bullets. He died from emptiness because, without meaning, the body follows the soul. That is what I witnessed over and over. Those who had a reason to live, even something as fragile as a memory or a promise, could endure almost anything. Those who lost all sense of why lost everything. The difference between surviving and living with meaning is not found in circumstances. It is found in the heart. Elias survived the war. I saw him one final time before the liberation. He had aged 20 years in two, but his eyes were clear. He didn't know if Anna was alive, but he told me something that I carry with me to this day. Even if I never see her again, I know she will be proud that I stayed human, that I didn't let them turn me into something I'm not. That, to me, is what it means to truly live. Not just to breathe, not just to function, but to endure with purpose. The pain didn't disappear, but the meaning transformed everything. He wasn't fighting for comfort. He wasn't fighting for survival. He was fighting for love, for memory, for something bigger than himself. And that, my friend, is how the soul finds its way. Even in the darkest of places. You don't need to be in a concentration camp to feel imprisoned. Today, the walls aren't made of barbed wire or concrete. They're made of distractions, dopamine, and deadlines. You wake up and check your phone before you even check in with your own soul. There's a constant noise, a pressure to be productive, be interesting, be fine. But behind all that motion, something is missing. You feel it at night? When the notifications stop and the silence creeps in, it's that quiet ache that says, I'm doing everything, and yet I feel nothing. This is the silent epidemic of our time. Not depression, not anxiety, but meaninglessness. It has a name: existential vacuum. Viktor Frankl called it neurogenic neurosis, suffering not from something biological, but something spiritual. It's the kind of suffering that comes from not knowing why you're here, from waking up, doing things, checking boxes, but feeling like none of it really matters. The soul gets sick when it cannot find a why to endure the how. And what do we do to escape that sickness? We run, we scroll, we consume, we chase pleasure because it's easier than chasing meaning. We confuse excitement with fulfillment, but those two are not the same. Pleasure is a momentary spark. It fades. Meaning is a steady flame. It endures. You can be surrounded by pleasures and still feel empty, because pleasure alone doesn't answer the deeper question: why am I here? You see, modern culture tells you to look for happiness. But happiness has become a marketing slogan. We've confused it with constant stimulation. Travel here, try this, buy that, be someone new. And yet, why are so many people more anxious, more addicted, more numb? Because the soul is not designed to live on excitation. The soul needs purpose, and when it doesn't find that purpose, it suffers. Quietly, internally, persistently. That suffering shows up as restlessness, chronic dissatisfaction, burnout with no clear cause, or a haunting question: is this all there is? But here's the thing most people miss. Your pain is not just a problem, it's a message. Pain isn't random. It's the soul's way of calling your attention to something deeper. A misalignment, a disconnect, a forgotten truth. You are not broken. You are being summoned. It's the anxiety, the sadness, even the apathy are not enemies. They're signals. Signals that you're out of sync with something essential, that you've been chasing what the world told you to chase, but ignoring your inner compass. This is where modern medicine often fails us. It treats anxiety like a purely chemical issue, as if serotonin levels alone explain why you cry in the shower or feel empty at the peak of your career. Now, yes, brain chemistry matters. Medication can help. Therapy can help. But if we only focus on biology, we miss the bigger picture. Because you are not just a brain, you are a being with a soul, with depth. And that soul is not asking for pills. It's asking for meaning. The suffering that is not transformed is transmitted. You pass it on to your children, your partner, your coworkers, or you convert it into anxiety. You tell yourself you're just stressed or burnt out, when in truth, you're disconnected from your why. Frankl believed that man's deepest drive is not pleasure, but purpose. And when we lack it, the symptoms appear, not as illness, but as a hunger that no amount of scrolling, shopping, or striving can satisfy. So, what's the answer? It starts with naming the pain, not avoiding it, not numbing it, but listening to what it's saying. Ask yourself, with honesty, what am I doing that truly matters to me? When was the last time I felt alive, and not excited, but alive? What would I still fight for, even if no one noticed? These are not questions for the mind alone. They are for the heart, for the soul. And when you start listening to your pain instead of silencing it, you begin to heal. Not because the pain goes away instantly, but because now it has meaning. There's something no one tells you when you're in the thick of it. That pain you're feeling, that anxiety that won't let you sleep. It's not a malfunction. It's a message. You are not broken. You're in transition. We're taught to run from suffering. It's medicated. Escape it. But what if the pain isn't trying to destroy you? What if it's trying to transform you? The pain is the lamp that turns on when the ego shuts off. The light. In Viktor Frankl's work with his patients, survivors of war, trauma, and deep personal loss, he noticed something strange. Some of the most devastated people, the ones who'd lost everything, were often the ones who found the deepest sense of meaning, not despite their pain, but because of it. He told the story of a man who had lost his wife suddenly. He was drowning in grief, till Frankl asked him, gently, what if she had died after you? Would she not be suffering now in your place? The man fell silent. His grief didn't disappear. But for the first time, it had meaning. His suffering was not meaningless. It was love enduring in silence. You're not here to avoid pain. You're here to give it a purpose. Suffering, when it's empty, is unbearable. But suffering that is transformed through meaning becomes sacred. You see, anxiety, grief, even despair, they're not enemies. They're invitations. Anxiety says something is not aligned. Grief says, you loved deeply. Emptiness says, you're ready for something more. And this is where the modern world misguides us. It tells you to find the light, chase the light, be the light. But it forgets that light only matters in the dark. The truth, meaning, is not born in comfort. It is born in the shadows, like a seed buried underground. Before it grows, it must sit in the dark. It must break open. It's in the cracking open where new life begins. Think of the myth of Orpheus, a man who descends into the underworld to retrieve his beloved Eurydice. He walks through hell, guided only by faith. And though he falters in the end, the journey itself is sacred, because to love is to suffer, to descend is human, but to return with wisdom, with vision that is transformation. The descent into darkness is not failure, it's the initiation. And you, too, are walking through your own underworld. Maybe it's a loss, a betrayal, a season of deep confusion. But what if you didn't rush to escape it? What if, instead of asking, how do I get out of this, you asked, what is this trying to show me? Every transformation has a threshold, and the old version of you cannot walk into the new world. The anxiety, the tension, the confusion. These are the contractions before a rebirth. They feel violent because something inside you is dying, but also something else is being born. You're not going backwards. You're not breaking down. You are shedding. And yes, it hurts, but the caterpillar doesn't become the butterfly in a flash of light. It dissolves. It loses form. It becomes unrecognizable. That chaos, that in-between state, that's where rebirth begins. This is what Frankl understood so deeply, that suffering can strip away everything false, everything imposed, inherited, or imitated, until what remains is something real, the seed of who you were always meant to become. You don't need to fix the pain. You need to feel it and follow where it leads, because in that pain lies the portal to purpose, and not a generic one, not a job title or a brand or a spiritual slogan, but your purpose. Raw, lived, felt, born from your unique wound. So, if you're in the dark right now, panic. Don't rush the light. Don't pretend to be okay. Let the darkness do what only it can: mature you, deepen you, waken you, because you are not being buried, you are being planted. Asterisk. The soul doesn't need answers. It needs space to speak. Somewhere between the chaos of your mind and the weight in your chest, there's a voice, but it's not loud. It's not dramatic. It's a whisper. And most people never hear it, asterisk, because they never get quiet enough. The soul finds healing the moment it feels heard. If there's one thing this modern world fears more than death, it's silence. Because in silence, the masks fall. The noise stops numbing you, and what's left is you. Not the version of you that performs. It's not the one that posts, or pleases, or pretends. Just you. Raw, unfiltered, honest, and yes, might be terrifying, but it's also sacred one. Create silence, even if it hurts. Start with 5 minutes. No phone, no music, no fixing. Just sit, breathe, feel. Let the discomfort speak. Let the ache rise, and instead of escaping it, ask it, what are you trying to show me? You see, pain doesn't come to punish. It comes to point to what matters, to what's missing, okay? To what's been buried. And you don't need to analyze it all at once, okay? You just need to listen, because healing rarely shouts. It whispers. Too. Right. What moves you and what paralyzes you? There's a reason so many of the world's great healers, poets, and mystics wrote through their darkness. Writing isn't just expression. It's excavation. It brings the invisible into the light. It gives shape to the shadows. Ask yourself, what am I longing for? What have I lost but never fully mourned? What would I do if I wasn't afraid? And write without judgment. Let it be messy. Let it be ugly. Let it be true, because sometimes a page becomes the place where your soul finally speaks. And in writing, we remember, you are not the pain. You are the one who's been carrying it silently, bravely, for far too long. 3. Do something. For someone with no expectation, service is a forgotten medicine, not the performative kind. Not the look how kind I am kind, but the kind that reconnects us to meaning, to humility, to something larger than ourselves. Maybe you cook for a neighbor. Maybe you call someone who's hurting. Maybe you write a letter of forgiveness you'll never send. And no, it won't fix your life overnight, but in that moment, something shifts. You stop spiraling inward, okay, and something sacred flows outward. The emptiness begins to shrink. When you become a space for someone else's healing. 4. Ask the sacred question. What meaning have I not yet found here? This is where everything turns. Not with why me, but with what for. When Frankl sat in Auschwitz, stripped of his home, his status, and even the manuscript of his life's work, he didn't ask why life was so cruel. He asked, what is this trying to teach me? Okay, and that question, okay, saved him. You don't need to find a perfect answer, but you do need to be willing to ask the question, because even the darkest suffering can be redirected into service, into story, into sacred responsibility. 5. Let the pain become mission. There are people walking this earth right now who have turned unspeakable loss into holy work. A mother who lost her child and now supports grieving parents. A veteran who turned PTSD into art. An addict who now walks others out of the same fire. They're not immune to pain. They just stopped hiding from it. They stopped asking to be rescued and chose instead to become a light. This is the soul of logotherapy. That your healing doesn't have to come before your purpose. Sometimes it's your purpose that brings the healing. You don't have to be fully whole to be useful. You just have to be willing to stop running, willing to feel, willing to give, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. 6. Let go of perfection and embrace meaning. Life doesn't need to be perfect to be profound. You don't need to be happy all the time to be whole. You just need to feel something real, to connect with something beyond yourself, to love even when you're scared, to stay even when it hurts, to keep showing up even when you don't have all the answers, because maybe the void you feel isn't asking to be filled. It's asking to be entered with courage, with softness, with presence. It's not a glitch. It's an invitation to remember what matters, to reclaim your soul, to begin again. And if you forget everything else, remember this: the emptiness is not your enemy. It is the space where light can enter. So sit with it, listen to it, let it soften you, because your purpose isn't hiding in a book or a career or a future version of yourself. It's hiding right here in this very moment, in your ache, in your questions, in your quiet beating heart. Illuminating what the ego hides, listening to what the soul whispers. You've made it this far, breathing a little deeper, feeling perhaps not an answer, but a presence. Maybe the anxiety is still there, but now you know it isn't the end. It's a calling that began as a tight knot in your chest, but could bloom into a seed of purpose. You are not broken, not weak, not lost. You are in transition, and every crossing has its dark night. Every birth begins with pain, but now you carry something many forget. You have the right not to run from yourself. The emptiness you feel may become the very place where God whispers, where meaning awakens, where the soul begins to breathe again. Yes, the world will keep telling you it's just chemistry, to offer you distractions, diagnoses, and pills. But here, in this space, we choose to listen to something deeper. We choose to sit with the pain not as an enemy, but as a messenger. We choose not just to survive, but to mean. So, before you go, one invitation. Today, don't try to fix everything. Don't chase answers. Just be patient with your pain. It's building the path beneath your feet. And when silence comes, when fear knocks, when the emptiness shows up, again remember this: if you feel this emptiness, you are not broken. You are being called to awaken, to love more deeply, to live with meaning.